And if it means we have to go into a mosque to wiretap or a church, then that's exactly where we're going to go. Because we're going to do whatever it takes to protect the American people. And I hear from time to time people say, hey, wait a second, we have civil liberties we have to worry about. But don't forget, the most important civil liberty I expect from my government is my right to be kept alive. And that's what we're going to have to do.
In the early 1800s, Benjamin Franklin said, "They who would give up an essential liberty for temporary security deserve neither liberty nor security." 300 years later, Americans still struggle with the ever-growing conflicts between security and lack of liberty in a police state. Throughout the years, the United States has seen a rise in legislations limiting personal liberty, police brutality, unlawful torture prisons, and a spiraling decrease in privacy, all in the name of security.
The Patriot Act was passed by the Bush administration in the wake of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. The goals of the Patriot Act was to strengthen domestic security and to broaden the powers of law enforcement agencies. The passing of the Patriot Act also came with much backlash. Many people believed it would give too much power to the government, it would threaten civil liberties, and it would undermine the democratic government it sought to protect. There was an increase in surveillance on the streets, in buildings, trains, and even right inside the very confines of your own home. You were being watched everywhere, and nothing you could do escaped the hunt for these alleged terrorists. American citizens gave away their privacy, their identities for mere feeling of safety and security. Americans knowingly spied on phone taps, hacking of security cameras, hacking of webcams. Anything connected to the internet could be used to track every single move you take and every single breath you take. With the passing of the Patriot Act, Homeland Security had grown to unimaginable proportions. They had become an army within the borders of the United States. They have amassed huge amounts of ammunition, armored vehicles, and UAVs. Homeland Security had been heavily attacked for using UAVs in American skies.
No right to privacy in the Constitution.
Security and protection are causing privacy to become a myth in America as surveillance is increasing. With states passing legislations that encourage racial profiling, the future of citizens are at risk.
The NYPD has made its 5 millionth stop and frisk.
New York is one state where the NYPD passed a stop and frisk policy where 86% of the people stopped were Black and Hispanic between 2011 and 2012. Not only are policies like this legally profiling people, this policy is almost useless as none of the people stopped were ever convicted of a serious crime. Similarly, another policy many states are debating on is installing drones in their city for the protection of their people. However, many people are considering how much importance the evidence from the drones would be in courtrooms and how to word the legalization correctly. Government officials are mostly concerned with framing the use of drones legally so companies can profit and the government can have more eyes on the people. With technology advancing, electronic surveillance seems to be what the law enforcers are promoting, leading to a lack of privacy. With programs such as the facial recognition software system in Florida incorrectly targeting civilians, and sites like Trapwire extracting confidential emails of millions of people and selling it to the highest bidders.
The first time my court had a case involving wiretapping, it said that's not covered by the Fourth Amendment there.
Privacy is violated in every way possible. With laws being constructed by misusing fear, privacy is becoming more scarce and the only time to act is now.
Some may argue that the only way to control people in mass numbers is by fear. In the past, there have been many examples of when the police used fear and violence to control mass numbers of angry people. One of the most well-known examples of this occurrence was during the Kent State rallies in Kent State University on May 4, 1970. During the rallies, which were to protest the bombings of Cambodia by the U.S., some destruction of property occurred, and because of this, the police were called. From then, they took matters into their own hands. Upon arrival, they immediately began using violence. Some started to use their batons and ended up injuring a couple people, including one already crippled Vietnam veteran. Shortly later, after the method proved to be not working, they opened fire, eventually killing 4 while hitting 14 students. This was later known as the Kent State shooting. People basically quit their jobs and moved into the streets in New York City in order to protest the corporate greed of the 1%. Not too long after, when the movement began to get hype, stories and videos of police officers abusing the protesters with batons and mace began circulating. This is when we ask ourselves, why do police officers in times of weakness use violence to control the people, even though they advocate peace and are supposed to be the peacekeepers?
In 2002, the Bush administration opened Guantanamo Bay, an awful detention center meant to fight the war on terrorism. The facilities tortured the prisoners through the use of sleep deprivation, solitary confinement, mock executions, sensory deprivation, extreme temperature, forced medication, the use of dogs, and even by watching others get tortured. By locating the camp outside the United States, federal agents have hoped to avoid the court's jurisdiction. But despite their attempts to keep this a well-kept secret, organizations such as Amnesty International and the Red Cross have spoken out. In 2007, Amnesty International released information stating that over 300 men were held without proper trial, and 470 were taken into custody in over 10 countries before being sent to Guantanamo. 86% of men were captured by alliances and sent to the United States for reward money. The camp has been open for 11 years with little to no signs of its closing. Even President Obama has made empty promises in regards of closing the bay throughout.
We're going to lead by shutting down Guantanamo and restoring habeas corpus. Legitimacy is reduced when we've got a Guantanamo that is open. I intend to close Guantanamo. Situations like Guantanamo.
But all to no avail.